Welcome to Therapeutic Astrology Podcast. I'm so happy that you are with me. I am together in person with my guest today, so I'm very excited about that. Welcome, Claus Springborg.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to speak with you about your new book. You're currently writing this book. It's an upcoming book that I've started to read. But let's start by introducing you. You are a PhD and you have the Sensing Mind Institute. Just
Yes.
Sensing Mind Institute, yeah.
Yes.
Which is an education for people who are already therapists.
Yes. So actually, I offer two educations there.
Okay.
One is a 4-year-long education.
Right.
You can take 1 year at a time.
Yeah.
And that's for people with a deep interest in personal and spiritual development. And then I also have an education for therapists, which is shorter, like half a year, 5 modules.
Okay.
And the book that I'm writing now is the textbook for that education. So yeah.
That must be wonderful connecting for you. Right, this is what I'm teaching. Now I'm putting it pen to paper.
It's so great.
Yeah.
And there's something about the process of writing a book. This is my third book. And there's something about, I don't really like writing books. It's a lot of struggle.
You don't
I
like
can't say that it's an easy process. It isn't for me. It isn't.
No.
But what I really love about writing books is that it clarifies one's thinking immensely. Because when you're doing workshops, you sit and you work with people and you say things and it kind of makes sense to everybody. But when you put it on paper, all of a sudden you just see all the little inconsistencies. And then you have to think through all of them. And it upgrades the material so much. So I really love that about writing books, even if it is a struggle sometimes.
It's hard work.
Yes.
But do you find that you have an eye for detail?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Some details, yes. I think the details of the logical consistency,
Right.
yes.
Okay.
The details of spelling and stuff like that,
Interesting.
no.
Okay.
That's I outsource somebody else much better. I have found a trick though. Now when I want to do the first proofreading myself, I listen to the book. Because when you have some AI program reading the book
That's
to you,
good.
if there's a spelling mistake, they just pronounce the word really in a strange way, and that will flag. Yeah, you'll hear it.
Right. So I am asking you because you have the moon in Virgo, but that's the detail-oriented part of it. But also, of course, you have Mercury retrograde in Scorpio, so that doesn't have anything to do with whether you're a good with writing or anything. But that moon in Virgo could potentially help you organize. Well, just that you're a person who appreciate that things are in a certain structure.
Yes, I mean, I'm on my second year writing this book, and I do it because I really like the structure.
Tell me about it. So you're on your second year writing it, and you've been wanting to write it.
For many years before that, yes.
And that's kind of cool, that it's the same thing that you've been wanting to write about.
Yes.
For many, many years.
Yeah.
And so should we dive a little bit into it?
Let's do it.
Like, what are they talking about? What is it?
Yes.
Well, it has to do with 5 knots. So far, so good. So 5 knots that is hard to untie, I guess, per definition. It's a knot.
Yes. So I think my fascination is, like the PhD I did was at Cranfield School of Management, and the topic was art-based methods in leadership development. And I had 60 managers as my test subjects. And for every manager, I asked them, what is a problem that you've been trying, that has great impact on something you care about, which is typically working climate or bottom line or something like that, and you've been trying to solve it for years, and you and you just can't do it. And often it's the kind of problems where you think you understand what the problem is. It seems obvious what you should do to solve it, and you've tried to do it, and somehow the problem doesn't go away and you don't understand why. And I find those problems fascinating. And of course, managers experience it, but people who come to therapy also experience it. Many times the things that bring you to therapy are these persistent issues in your life that you just can't crack.
Yeah.
And many times you have a feeling you kind of know what you need to do, but somehow it doesn't work. And I find that fascinating. And for me, this is where the idea of the knot comes from, because you can think about those as like Gordian knots, like these really complicated, difficult problems. And the interesting thing about the Gordian knot is, of course, the way it was solved is that somebody took a sword and cut through it. And this is also the idea behind the book, that there is kind of a shortcut to solving some of these very persistent problems.
Sounds great.
Yes.
I'd love one of those.
Yeah.
A quick cut. So, but the knots in overall terms is about something that we are concealing from ourselves, and that we keep. It's something that it's not visible for us.
Yes. So many times, let me give you an example. Often when clients come to therapy, they will present their problem for the therapist. So they say, my problem is lack of self-confidence, or my problem is something in my relationships that's not working, or something like this. And so clients often come and present a problem. And it's good as a therapist to say, well, actually, they're not presenting the problem, they're presenting their solution to the problem they think they have. And many, many times clients get it wrong. They think this is the problem, but actually something else is the problem. And if you keep trying to solve something you think is the problem, but it isn't really the problem, of course the real problem is going to persist. And this is the anatomy of the knot, you can say. I give you a very concrete example, very down to earth.
Yeah.
If you have a plant and it has yellow leaves, you might think to yourself, oh, the problem is that I haven't given this plant enough water, right? So you think that's the problem. If that is the problem, the solution is simple. Just give it more water. So you give it more water, but it keeps developing yellow leaves. And you think, oh, wow, I still haven't given it enough water, so I give it more. Or maybe you think I was too late with giving it water, and now I can't reverse the process, or whatever. What you don't think is, maybe the problem was overwatering. And by you having the wrong idea about what the problem is, that makes you engage in an activity that actually makes the real problem worse.
Sure. Yeah. I'm thinking about a long forgotten almost education in social work that I did many years ago, where we were taught to identify the problems, like identify the social problems, because otherwise we would start solving the client's problems that, it was too much. Just identify the social problems that we could actually do something about. I'm just getting that association, but I'm sure it's very different when we go into it. And I also feel, when I read this chapter that I've read of your book, I felt that it related to Alan Watts and the game that he's talking about. Have you read him? Is it?
I've listened to a lot of his talks. Okay. Yeah. He's a very good communicator, and I like him a lot.
Okay, but let's go into it. So the first knot is about a fallacy of misplaced concreteness.
Yes. So when clients come to therapy, they will often say, what are the kind of things that they come with, right? It's like lack of confidence, lack of love, there's not enough joy in my life, there's like self-doubt, excessive self-criticism, I'm not kind enough to myself, or something like that.
Yeah.
The clients often think like there's something wrong with them
Yeah.
that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
Right? So this is the fundamental premise. Uh, the what I present in the book is the idea: what if that is wrong? What if there is nothing fundamentally lacking or absent or wrong in anybody? The problem is not a lack of some imagined phenomenon that we can call self-confidence or joy or something like that. The problem is that our minds are too busy, and therefore we lose awareness of what it feels like to just be in the present moment. When you lose awareness of being in the present moment, that doesn't mean that you're not in the present moment. You're still here.
Yeah.
But it creates a sense of lack.
Yeah.
And this is like the yellow leaves, right? It's a sign that something is off. But many times that sense of lack is interpreted as, oh, it must be a lack of something. I must be missing something. And therefore the solution is I have to figure out what I'm missing. And then I have to produce it or go out and get it from somewhere. But if the real problem is not that you are missing something, but that you are distracted from the treasure that you already have, and you just don't notice it, then the solution is completely different. Then the solution isn't that you should change anything or go out and get something or produce something. You should cease doing the things that distract you from noticing what it feels like to be in the present moment. That is a completely different problem. And the nuts are basically all about different ways in which we get this thing wrong. So, and when we have ideas about what we should do and what the real problem is that are mistaken, then trying to fix that problem will just drag our awareness further away. It will make our minds more busy and drag us, make it less likely that we notice what it actually feels like being in the present moment. And therefore, it's just like overwatering the plant. We make the real problem worse through the actions we take to try and solve the problem that we think we have.
So to understand the words even, the fallacy, so that's the mistake of misplaced concreteness. There's a misplacement and that it's not that concrete that we think that it is.
No, so this is the first. So this is the overall thing is that we misdiagnose why we are feeling a sense of lack. We feel a sense of lack because we lost awareness of being, but we think we feel a sense of lack because we've lost all these different things we think we need. How does that come about? Why do we get this strange idea? And that's the first nut. So that's the one that one nut is the nut of positive reification, or as you say, misplaced concreteness.
Okay.
And that's the first mechanisms through which this occurs. So when you experience being in the present moment, it feels awesome. If you meditated, then you know how meditation sometimes it's just really annoying and your back hurt and whatnot. But sometimes it's like amazing, right? All of a sudden you experience this deep sense of peace, or you experience like all of a sudden like all your worries and concern falls away, and you feel like this state of lightness and joy coming into you. Or sometimes you feel a sense of vibrancy, a sense of unrestricted dynamism. Or sometimes you feel very tender. So all these positive states can emerge. Now, all of that is just different aspects of what it feels like to be in the present moment. But if you feel a sense of, let's say, lightness and joy, and then you say, oh, this is a thing, I didn't have it and now I have it, and we call it lightness and joy, and it's a thing, and now I have it, but I can lose it again. And now you start thinking about what should I do to get it? What are the things that makes me lose it? How can I prevent losing it? And see, now your mind starts getting active, thinking about all these things, and you lose awareness of the present moment.
It takes you away from the moment, yeah.
And the more you lose awareness of the present moment, you start feeling the joy slipping away from you, not because it goes anywhere, but because you go somewhere, right? But when you start feeling that loss, it activates you more and you go like, oh my God, I'm losing it. I have to figure out how to retain it faster. And so your mind starts spinning even more. And this is the first nut, that when we experience being in the present moment, we give it a positive name. By giving it a positive name, we conceptualize it as a thing. The moment we conceptualize it as a thing, we start thinking about that thing, and that takes our awareness away.
That's the concreteness. It's
yes,
placing it on the thing rather than the sensing behind it.
Yes. Okay. So it's we misunderstand the phenomenon. We misunderstand the experience.
Okay, I have many questions.
I'm sure.
So I want to get to the implications that this has for therapists. But just before, you said that it's that. Well, what I've written here as a reference to your book is that there's a deep sense of inner loss underlying a wide range of psychological issues, and that's what I heard you say just before.
Yes.
And so you are aware of this inner loss that is really the reason we show up in therapy. Yeah, what does that entail for therapists? What do we do with that? And I mean, we also clients ourselves, in therapy. I mean, I am at least.
Yes. No, of course, that's important.
So we also come with a sense of loss.
Yes, of course. So if you buy into the story that there are things like self-confidence and joy and connection and peace and love and so on, and clients, the problem of clients is that they can lose these things and they have to develop ways of producing them and retaining them. Then you might, as a therapist, try to help clients solve the problem that they think they have. But when you do that, you reinforce the client's narratives, which actually takes their awareness away from being.
Which and so you false.
Yes, so you make things worse. If instead you say, well, when the client says that they don't have love in their life or don't have self-confidence or something like that, it's an expression of, or an interpretation of, a sense of loss. And let's just start by checking whether this loss is produced by them not experiencing the present moment. So if you can help clients become aware of what it feels like being in the present moment, and then once they are aware of how it feels like being in the present moment, then you can check, do you still feel that the lack of confidence or love is an issue? Many times clients will say, no, it's not. It's just not an issue anymore. Because now they have what they were truly missing, not what they thought they were missing.
Wow. Yeah, that's really good. And I come to think of something you say on, I think it's your website, that you grew up with these two interests of that one is scientific and the other one is
more spiritual.
Yeah. And so here we have the psychology that could easily go into the client's narrative of saying this is what you want, let's get you there somehow, whatever method you're using. And then you have the spiritual side that, from my understanding, there's a common thread in spirituality saying there's a void inside of you that you can feel if you are not tuned into some source or a well or
yes. Yeah, so yeah, basically they say that you already have what you're looking for.
Yeah.
but because you are too busy looking for it, you're not feeling it, and that creates a sense of loss.
Right. So that's something that I need, a piece of it that I need to be reminded of. You're saying we already have it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so the distractions.
Yes.
That's just our stories about ourselves, or what is that?
One of the distraction comes from, this is exactly in the first knot, that one of the distractions is, and this is the root of all the distractions. You have it, you feel it, so far so good. It feels like something to you. It feels like joy, it feels like something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you conceptualize what it is that you have. And you conceptualize it in such a way that you start thinking about it as a thing that you could potentially lose.
Mm-hmm.
When you do that, then your mind starts getting active.
And that's the problem.
And then you lose awareness of what is already here.
Mm.
That creates a loss in you, and you misinterpret that loss. So you don't think it's a loss of awareness of what is already here. You think it is a loss of a precious thing that you had, but now you don't have it anymore.
Mm.
It's that misconception. So in Buddhist teaching, for example, they talk a lot about, you have the three kleshas. So this is like the three problems, you can say. And it's often translated like ignorance and hatred and desire, or something like this. And they say the ignorance is that you look at things that do not have what they call inherent existence. So they don't exist in themselves. They're not things. But you think they are. And because you think they are things, you'll start, if you like them, you'll try to grab them. If you don't like them, you try to push them away. So this is the hatred and the desire. It all comes from a fundamental misconception of the nature of reality. So when I say, you think joy is a thing, you think peace is a thing that you can get or lose, that's exactly what they're talking about. You are thinking about these phenomena as things that are similar to physical things that you can either take or you can lose, but they're really not. And as long as you operate from that misconception, you will create suffering for yourself.
Is the aim to be in a neutral state?
The aim is to see clearly what kind of thing joy is, what kind of thing peace is, what kind of thing confidence is. So one way that I really like to explain these things is, and this is, I mean, this is not my invention, many people have used this. They say that the experience of being in the present moment, or often this is talked about just as being, is very similar to space. So like space. Yeah. Now, space doesn't really feel like anything in itself. But as human beings, we compare things. And so the experience of space, which is like just a pleasant nothing, you can say, or not even pleasant, it's just a nothingness. If you had a headache, severe headache for a couple of days, and then you feel spaciousness and nothingness, it's gonna feel like a delicious relief.
Yeah.
And now you might say, oh, there is such a thing as a delicious relief, and now I have it and I don't want to lose it. But actually, there isn't a thing. It's just you went from one experience to another, and that made you, or you went from one experience to experience nothing, but then you conceptualize that nothing as a thing, but it isn't. And this is the same with the being. So when you're very occupied with your thoughts, sometimes, let's say, your thoughts are very busy, right? You have a lot of voices in your head and a lot of emotional turbulence, and there's just a lot going on, right? That I think most people can relate to. Sometimes there's a lot going on. If then, for whatever reason, maybe you're meditating, maybe you're doing something else, but you transition from experience this inner turmoil to just experience nothing. Most people won't recognize it as, oh, this is just nothing. they will say, this is peace.
Ah.
But does that mean that there is such a that peace is a thing? No, it's just a word that we use to describe the nothing if we transition to it from turmoil.
Yeah, if we transition to it from turmoil, yeah, from, could you say, tension? Your example with the headache, like if we are holding on too tight, if we're tensing up, then we don't realize what's actually there.
Yeah, if there's a lot of tension and it's very unpleasant to us, and then after a while, for some reason, something happens, I don't know what, and then we feel nothing, then that nothing is not just going to feel like a nothing, it's going to feel like a something.
But
very
can you
pleasant.
say in general that it could have to do with tensing up? I mean, it's something you use in some kind of traditions of psychotherapy with that, but trauma is actually held in the bodily tension.
Yes. So tension plays an important part. Because but this has more to do with a different kind of nuts.
Okay, we're not there yet.
We're not quite there. Actually, it has to do a lot with the third nut.
Okay.
So this is why when we talk about these things, there's so many mechanisms, and they're all interlinked. And to create clarity, I think it's really good to make this clear distinction about 5 different
absolutely
nuts.
Yeah. Problems.
For the first nut, it's just this almost counterintuitive thing that when we give positive names to the experience of being in the present moment, we kind of nudge ourselves towards getting distracted from that experience, because we start seeing it as a thing, and then we start thinking about that thing.
So you put it like this in the book, that we are reacting to the model of the world rather than the world itself.
Yes. So in one of the sections, what I say is that we can imagine that when we're experiencing things, we have a lot of sense perceptions, and we can't be aware of all of them. So what we often do is we have a task in mind, and then we pick out the things that are relevant to that task, and then so we bundle our sense perceptions into groups. Like, for example, if you just say a sentence like, I'm feeling happy today, right? And this is such a funny thing, because you say, I feel happy, and you go like, that's fine. And let's, for argument's sake, say you are actually feeling happy. So you're feeling happy, you feel happy, fantastic. But then if you're asked the question, what does the happiness you feel actually feel like? Many people will struggle to answer that question.
Yeah.
They will say, but it feels like happiness, but that's a non-answer, because you're just using the word. So if we and that's because we are aware of the concept, but we are not aware of all the somatic experiences underlying the concept. So if you for example look like something like happiness, and you dive into the somatic experience of it, you might say, well, it feels like a sense of lightness. You might feel that sense of lightness somewhere in the body. Maybe some people might feel it in the head, some people feel it in the heart, some people feel it in the belly. You might feel that there is a movement. Many people feel happiness as something moving upwards. Right? You know this wonderful song, "'Cause I'm Happy," right?
Yeah.
The one of the verses says, if you feel like a balloon going into space. That's actually a very wonderful description of the somatic experience of happiness. I always found that was such an interesting line to have that in that lyric.
So there's a point here about how our descriptions can narrow down the experience and even confusing the experience with something else.
The moment you call it happiness and you start thinking about happiness, you might just lose awareness of what does that actually feel like.
Yeah.
And the experience become impoverished. And so you lose, you sense that you've lost something in that process. And all that happened is that you moved your awareness from the actual felt sense experience to the concept. And this is the knot of positive reification. And to solve the knot of positive reification, in therapy, you just go the opposite way. So one of the things I often do when I work with clients is when they tell me their stories, I listen for what I call positive entry points. So sometimes clients will mention a sense of love or a sense of happiness or a sense of peace or something like that, and then quickly move on to something else. And I will often say, let's just pause for a bit. And the love you just described, can you just describe what it feels like? So one of the examples I give in the book is, so in the book I have these fictional therapy sessions where I have one column where I write what the conversation between me and the client.
Is it fictional?
I think a lot of my clients would say, like, isn't that just my session?
Okay.
But there will be like 20 clients who think that it was just their session, right? Because a lot of the sessions will be very similar.
Yeah.
But yes, the it's not a transcript of any concrete session, because that would be some ethical problems doing that, right? So I have a conversation with me and a client, and then in one column and in the other column, I write, what am I thinking as a therapist? What am I thinking? Why am I doing the things I'm doing? How do I interpret what the client is saying? What are the theories I want to test out? How do I and all these kind of things.
Yeah.
And so one of the examples I give was is an example of client who talks about being together with some people, some friends. I think one of them is a partner or something like that, and feeling a lot of love. But then at some point, one of the people start talking about these really heavy issues, and it bugs her because she feels the mood changes and the love is lost, right? And so basically she wants to talk to me about, how do I handle this situation? How do I make people stop talking about these heavy issues when I want to enjoy a nice time with them, right? That's
good question.
That's the concept of the problem that the client comes with. But what I hear is, hang on a sec, you experience something that you refer to as love. I want to hear more about that. So I asked the client to describe that sense of love. And I think in this example, the client says, oh, it feels like this fountain in the heart area. And she describes this fountain, and it has a lot of effects on her. It feels very uplifting, very relaxing, very juicy, all these kind of things. And then I will ask something like, now that you're describing this fountain in the heart, are you feeling it? She says, yeah, of course, you can't really describe in detail such felt sense without also feeling it, right? So she feels that love flowing in the heart. And then I say, okay, now that you do feel the love flowing in the heart, do you have a different perception of the situation? And she says, actually, it doesn't bother me anymore. Because the problem nothing was lost. She just got occupied with the heavy topics and her ideas about why there should or shouldn't be talking about these heavy topics. And that made her lose the connection. But when through describing the love, she regains the awareness of this fountain that she has in the heart.
I'm like...
Then the problem isn't there anymore.
Right. I'm looking through the papers because I was... I think it was a question for that actually.
Yes.
So she has the experience of loss of love. And I have a question about love infatuation. I'm not sure where it is. Do you remember what I'm talking about with that question?
Yes.
Because what is real love compared to how you could idealize someone and fall in love with someone, and it's great in the beginning and then maybe it's not so great after a while.
Yes. So we're going to move slightly towards the second nut, but we're going to do it anyway.
I think I've confused them already.
No, but I mean, they're all linked together, and the first nut sets up the conditions under which the second nut occurs.
Okay.
So if you, my claim is, if you sit and do nothing, like in meditation, right? If you sit down, you do nothing, zero, and you're just in the present moment. A very common experience is that you feel deep love. So many people will describe their experience, the kind of experiences they have in meditation, as a deep sense of love. But it's not a love that is directed towards anything in particular. It's just sometimes people will say things like, it feels like the whole universe is made out of love. There's nothing other than love, right? It's that beautiful experience. Then we get off the meditation cushions, right? And the troubles start.
Yeah.
And we lose the experience. But then we've said, okay, so in that situation, I felt something and I called it love, and it's a thing, and now I lost it. And now I have to start thinking about how to get it back. A very common strategy for getting love back is, of course, finding someone who can give it to you.
Externally.
Yes. So finding the right partner who will love you and love you unconditionally and love you in the right way and give you the compliments or the gifts or the whatever it is you think that you need from another person in order to recapture or regain that sense of love.
I think we've been programmed that way, I have to say.
It is a very widespread idea that is embedded in a lot of cultural products.
Yes.
Yes, like, of course, movies and songs and whatnot. And I think it's just wrong. I think it's just a misconception. The way I often describe it is, because then you can say, and I think this is a really important thing to tackle, because when I say you already have everything, you're just not aware of it, many people say, Claus, come on, right? I have experienced being with a certain person consistently. Every time I'm with that person, I feel so much love. Surely there must be something in the relationship that's generating that. Okay. I will say, not so fast.
Okay.
I think the mechanism. So on the one hand, because now I have a conundrum, and the whole book is solving all these conundrums.
Yeah.
From spiritual teachings, you hear the essence of who you are is pure love, pure joy, pure fulfillment, all these kind of things. Yet, in our everyday life, you can't deny that you experience certain positive states in certain situations and not in others, and it's quite consistently. And it really looks like external things are generating some of these things, right? So there's a bit of a discrepancy between these two messages. How can we solve that knot, so to speak?
How are you solving it?
Yes. So the way I say is like, okay, let's assume, just for argument's sake, let's assume that the spiritual teachings are right. It's in there. You're made out of love. You're made out of joy. But sometimes you lose awareness of it. So you have these mechanisms in your mind that will drag your attention away from that, will distract you from it in such a way that it's difficult for you to notice it. Okay. Imagine, for example, you're made out of love, but you don't notice it because one of the things that you are very worried about is that you've gotten into your head that maybe you're a worthless kind of person, right?
Yeah.
That would not be uncommon. Many people have this. Then they cover it over with a lot of different things, but their deep dark secret is that they're actually feeling like a worthless person.
Yeah, going back to what you started with, there's something wrong with me, and that's what you come to see a therapist about.
Exactly. Now, if that is the like concern and worry, if that concern and worry keeps you occupied, your attention monopolizes your attention, you're not noticing that you're loved. Okay, good. Here comes another person who looks at you and say, you're an amazing person.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, for a brief moment, when you're with that person, you no longer worry about your value. That thing that kept your attention imprisoned falls away when you're with that person.
So you're reminded of who you really are.
Well, I will say when that thing falls away, you're more likely to notice other things, like, for example, the love that is already there. But you get a little confused and you think that it was created by the other or given to you by the other. It wasn't. Their role was just dismantling or dissolving the thing that took your attention away from the fact that you already have the love. It's a little bit the same, and again, to bring it down to earth, I think many people can relate to the following scenario. You sit and you're very occupied with work, right? Maybe you're writing a book, or maybe you're doing something else, right? And you're very occupied with the work. At some point, I don't know, for some reason you stop working, right? Maybe you finished work. And all of a sudden you say, wow, I'm famished. I'm starving. I'm super hungry.
Yeah.
Most likely, you've been hungry for a while. Yeah. It wasn't stopping working that created the sense of hunger, but stopping working, finishing your task, removed the thing that distracted you from noticing the hunger. I think it's the exact same thing with love.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
I think we can relate.
Yes, that's I think that's a good example, because it's a situation where you don't get confused.
Yeah.
You know, no, this sensation was there all along. I don't think that the stopping work created it. But somehow I do think that my partner being in a certain way creates the love. But actually, I think the two situations are exactly the same.
And so what's the difference between falling in that, that kind of love with a partner and the love you have inside? What's the difference?
I think, back to your question about infatuation, right?
Yeah.
If you have the false idea that the source of love is that guy or that girl, you're gonna get infatuated with them.
Okay.
And it sets you up for all sorts of problematic relationship dynamics. Because if they have it and they can give it to you, right? They proved that in the beginning, and then suddenly they stop giving it to you, right? Why are they being so mean? Yeah. They could do it, but now they decided not to do it. You don't see that the reason you no longer feel the love is that maybe there are certain issues in the relationship that are now dragging your attention away from the love that is already there. That's why you stopped feeling it. They didn't stop giving it to you because they never gave it to you.
Oh, that's a good line. They never gave it to you.
They never gave it to you. It was your idea. You thought they did it, but they never did. And that means that when a new unconscious pattern in you start distracting you so that you cannot notice the love that is already here, you think they stopped giving it to you. And then now you get mad at them. And then you try to think, how can I coax them or force them or manipulate them into starting giving me the love again?
Love me.
Exactly. But all those concerns will again drag your awareness away from the present moment, and the love you feel is just an aspect of the present moment. It's just what it feels like to be in the present.
Being in love is what it feels like to be in the present.
Yes, that's one aspect of it. When you really notice what you feel like when people describe what it feels like being in the present moment, one common thing that they will say is like, this just feels like love. Like being in love.
I mean, it's a really good advertisement for
yes.
meditation, right? Like, you're gonna fall in love.
Yes.
And there's gonna be plenty of it, and whoa, that's a big one. That's a big one.
I can't help. This is like when you say there's gonna be plenty of it, right?
Well, if no one can take it away, I'm thinking.
Yes, exactly. But even talking about it in terms of quantity comes out, it only makes sense if you think about it as a thing. Right?
So you don't use words as endless love or any measure like that?
Well, sometimes I do for evocative reasons, but I try not to get confused and think that this means that it's important to keep your awareness of this is not a quantifiable thing.
Because, as you say, ultimately, what we seek is being.
Yes. And being appears to us, because we compare being with different things, it appears to us as different things. So, being is that when I use the word being, I just talk about, it's just the experience of the present moment when your attention isn't captured by thoughts and emotions. That's it.
And you say that it's often a profoundly positive experience.
It's often a profoundly positive experience because our thoughts and emotions are often a profoundly negative experience. So transitioning from our thoughts and emotions to being is often an improvement, you can say.
Yeah.
Long-term meditators, when you talk to people who've been meditating for a long time, like spiritual teachers, Buddhist teachers, something like this, and you say, what does being actually feel like? They won't describe it as profoundly positive things. They will say it feels like water, like space, like neutral, like nothing. But that's because they have become familiar with it and because it has transformed their thoughts and emotions. So their thoughts and emotions no longer provide a negative contrast that makes the nothing appear positive.
Okay. And do you experience that?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. I remember one of the teachers that I really value is a Buddhist teacher called Chogyam Rinpoche. It's a funny story. It's like I was doing the SAT education with Claudio Naranjo at some years ago before he passed, and at that time I was invited to Tibet to do some. I was teaching contact improvisation, and some crazy friends of mine from Ukraine. They were traveling around the world, doing a contact impro journey. Nice. They called it. So they wanted to go to places where there was no contact improvisation. So contact improvisation is a form of dance, and they would do these festivals, and they wanted to do a festival in Tibet. And I thought, and they invited me to come along as a teacher, and I thought, if I'm going to Tibet, I should seek out some teachers, right? Obviously. Mm-hmm. So I asked Claudio Naranjo, I say, do you know a lot of Tibetan teachers? Who should I seek out when I go to Tibet? And Claudio Naranjo said to me, you should go and see Chogyam Rinpoche. He's an amazing teacher, and he speaks, his English is really good, which is also an advantage, right? It turns out that the trip got cancelled. I don't know exactly why. They had some issues with something, the logistics or whatever.
This is sort of sad story all of a sudden.
Well, not quite, because it's not through.
Okay.
So I thought, darn, right. But I was curious about this Chogyam Rinpoche, so I looked him up. And the first thing that pops up is an event that takes place in Jutland. So he was actually, like a month later, he was coming and doing something in Jutland. And that was very funny, and I had the pleasure of going to that. So Gamde in Jutland, which is a Buddhist center. And he goes there quite frequently, actually. So, and it is arguably easier for me to go to another place in Denmark than to go to Tibet. So that was really nice. One of the things that he says, and I've heard this from other teachers as well, is, of course, in the way when they talk about being, they often talk about experiencing the nature of mind or the nature of reality, the true nature of reality. And many times they say, when people really experience it, they often don't want it because it feels like nothing. It feels neutral, and they're looking for something like amazing. Right?
Yeah.
And they go like, "What? This is just like no." But if you stay with it and you understand what it is, you start understanding the value of it. But I just think that is such an interesting point, that actually uh, being in itself doesn't feel like much. But when we compare it to the inner turmoil or tension or negativity or issues, it feels like a relief, it feels like a release, it feels like joy, it feels like love, it feels like peace, it feels like all of these wonderful things, connection, all of these things.
Wonderful. Wonderful. We have like about 5 to 7 minutes left. I just want to say so.
All good. Yes.
So we'll see what. But also I feel really moved by the fact I cannot pronounce this guy's name, but that you found him, like you were calibrated vibrationally to finding him, and then he finds you, in a way, comes to your home country, right?
That's a way of saying it, yeah.
Yeah, that's really what's striking me. Like you were supposed to meet him, like either that you were willing to go, but yeah.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was very grateful for that.
And so your inspiration sources is it is like that you're I don't know if you're torn between, but at least there is a division between the science part of you and the spiritual part of you.
Not really.
There's no divide.
No. I know many people feel that there is a great divide between science and spirituality, and I find that is a pity, because I don't see it that way. I think if there is, just like before when I say, well, the spiritual teaching says this, and then my everyday experience says this, for me that is an invitation not to pick sides and dismiss one over the other, but to think deeply about it. And I think a lot of wisdom and understanding can be developed by thinking deeply about it. And actually, I think that is fundamentally what science does. There are many situations in science, like one of the, a long time ago, I studied physics at the university in Copenhagen. So that was my start of my academic career. That was studying physics.
Did you like it?
I love physics.
Okay.
And I love the precision and clarity that comes from, and the capacity for critical thinking that comes from science. And I think that spirituality needs that. Like, one of the reasons I'm writing this book is also because I think there is so much beautiful teaching in spirituality, but it is infested with fluffy concepts that are ill-defined and all these kind of things. And I think bringing a scientific rigor and clarity and precision to the field of spirituality is so needed.
That would be amazing.
Yes.
Is that possible?
Well, you tell me. You're working your way through the book. I think it is. I think that is really what I want to do. Like, for example, when I talk about being is just the experience of being in the present moment and not having your attention taken by thoughts and emotions, right? That I hope that is a clearer and definition, and I also hope that is a definition that people who are not believers, you can say, people who are a little skeptical of spiritual traditions and spiritual teaching, that this is something they can get on board with.
Okay, so you mean by describing it clearly?
Yes.
I mean, because it cannot be proven scientifically, I guess. I mean, that's why.
I think a lot of the things can be proven scientifically. I mean, there's a lot of research showing that a reduction in mind wandering makes people a lot happier.
Like that, yeah.
And I think those if you look into happiness research, there's a ton of stuff there that is in support of this.
Yeah.
They've done a lot of brain scan of long-term meditators and seen that there are physical changes in the brain. Yeah. Of course, going from noticing physical changes in the brain to sort of interpreting what that means, that's a bit of a leap, but that's part of the scientific process. Sure. So I find that the way I think about it is, like many of the predominant teachers. As you can hear, I'm very inspired by many different directions, but Buddhism is a big part of it. Also, Sufism is a big part of it. I've been very fortunate with teachers. I think some of my main teachers is Claudia Naranjo has had a very big impact. Faisal Muqaddam, who developed the Diamond Logos Diamond approach together with Almas and Karen Johnston. Very big impact on me. Some of his senior teachers like Jeremy Klein, Volusia van Horsen, very big impact. And many times when I see these people working, amazing at what they do. But when I hear them talk about what they are doing, I said, no, we need a conceptual cleanup here. This is too much fluff. I want it to be more precise.
I like that.
And so this is my mission. And when you look back, like at for example, Buddhist teachers, right? One of the big Buddhist teachers is Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna was an academic, right? He wrote treatises.
Okay.
I think if you should translate what he did into modern scientific language, I would say he was doing something that in modern terms would be something called maybe autoethnography or first-person research.
Okay.
So he is rigorously examining his own first-person lived experience. But this is not a haphazard. You can do that with rigor and with in a comprehensive way. And the way I see it, a lot of the spiritual teaching came out of years and years and years of rigorous and systematic introspection. And that's basically just science. Does that mean that there are of course, in certain spiritual texts, there are some bonkers claims, right? Like if you read old science books, there are certain things where you go like, yeah, we don't believe that anymore because, we've done more research.
Development.
But I really don't see spirituality and science as opposed to each other at all.
No, I've, in a not scientific way, I can feel that when I read something really ancient, and like you say, then often today we have measurements of that, whether it be overthinking, some other route to happiness that we can confirm in modern science and modern psychology anyway. So yeah, that's really important work you're doing.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yes.
What a mission.
And this goes back to why I have been wanting to write this book for so long. It is because I'm driven by bridging that gap and making it possible for science and spirituality to have a fruitful dialogue. Many people have tried that before, and I think it's important to keep trying that.
Yeah, and also, I mean, you have the advantage of being in both camps.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Not standing in one, trying to understand the other, but you actually have a real education in spiritual traditions. So
yes.
And the science,
Yeah. 10 years of apprenticeship. Yeah.
See, that's also a Virgo thing. I also thought about the Virgo moon in terms of the problem solving, but also having a teacher for a long time, usually because you really want to learn the field, and then you become the teacher. So that's like in the archetype of Virgo. So that's pretty cool.
Yes.
So liking your chart, but also, and you're Scorpio, so going beneath and going places where other people may not come.
That is certainly an interest of mine. Yes, I cannot deny that. Yeah.
Great. Oh, I have so much more, but we don't have time. So
we will meet again to discuss the following 4 nuts.
Yeah. And pieces from this one.
And pieces from but I for me the first nut is really this thing, that the counterintuitive thing, that by giving positive names to our experience of being, we inadvertently create or nudge ourselves to direct our attention elsewhere.
Okay,
and
but therefore
we lose it.
I like that thing that you're talking about, the process of fragmentation of our personality.
Yes, we'll get to that.
Okay,
Especially, let's
good.
discuss that on the
Okay, so
in the
that's a
knot of fragmentation, because
good.
that's really where it belongs. Yeah.
Yeah, good. That's a cliffhanger.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Klaus. And I
Thank
will
you.
link to you in the show notes so people can find more about you.
Fantastic.
Thank you for
Awesome.
this.
Thanks for inviting me, and looking forward to the next time.
Yeah, me too.